Hey entrepreneurs, let's face it. Growing a business and being an entrepreneur is hard. You go 1 or 2 steps forward, only take 2, 3, 4 steps back. It's full of obstacles and landmines. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to overcome the messy middle and growth paradox of business growth through the 7 principles of entrepreneurial success. Look, I've been there and got fired from the very company I co-founded after 15 years of growing it to north of $50 million of revenues. I had to lick my wounds and figure out my learnings, and through that process, I developed these 7 principles that helped me grow the business of my dreams to north of $100 million the right way. Before we begin going through the 7 principles of entrepreneurial success, you must know as an entrepreneur where you are. So let's walk through the journey of an entrepreneur. All entrepreneurs, unless you're buying a business, which could happen, start right here at the beginning. Startup. This is when you're really excited. We call this the uninformed optimism phase of starting a business. You really don't know what you don't know, but you're really, really excited about it. You think this business is going to be what's going to create the wealth and freedom you aspire to build, so you're really, really excited. So everybody starts here. And after a certain period of time, maybe after you get a couple $100,000 of revenue, you hire your first employee, you start getting some traction, all entrepreneurs enter what we call the struggle zone. And in this zone is where really you're trying to figure out what your business mix is. Around 70% of entrepreneurs are right here. They're paying themselves, but maybe they're paying themselves last. They're having turnover their employees. They're trying to figure out the perfect ideal employee. Maybe they're even changing their product or pivoting their business model here and there. So they start going down this transition learning curve into uninformed pessimism. It wasn't as exciting as it was back here, but you still are excited about where you're going to be able to build this business, but you want to try and get to that next level of success. That next level of success is the lifestyle business. And I usually experience the struggle zone to be quite a long time. This could be 5, 10 years of struggling to try and get your business to this lifestyle phase. In this lifestyle phase, you're eventually able to start paying yourself some money. You start getting comfortable. You're kind of like plateauing here. You're still not as excited as you were when you first started up the business, but finally you can afford that house you wanted. You're paying yourself an appropriate amount of salary. Your team's stabilized. Your customers are stabilized, and you got yourself a nice little business here. And here's where the entrepreneurial trap is. If you want to grow your business beyond the lifestyle to create a high-performance business, which is where wealth and freedom is created for entrepreneurs, and you can create that level of business, how do you go from lifestyle to high performance? Well, this is a big entrepreneurial trap. I like to call this zone right in here the messy middle. And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs get trapped. The messy middle is full of landmines. It's not a straight line like that. What does success look like? It's a bunch of, oh craps, what's happening? Oh, this is great. Oh shit, what happened? And you go up and down as you're trying to get through that messy middle, but this is very treacherous terrain. This is where you can fall off the cliff and potentially lose your business just like I did. And if you think about the transition learning curve, uninformed optimism, uninformed pessimism, as you go through the messy middle, you start coming down a little bit deeper to this valley of despair. You start wondering, oh man, should I have done that? Now in order to hire these new employees, I have this growth paradox issue. I hire some more employees, I got to pay them more money, maybe it's risking more of my income, maybe the business is making a little less money because we're making investments. Was this the right decision? You start doubting yourself as you go through this area and you try and grow to become a high performance business. So in this book, The $100 Million Journey, your guide to building the business of your dreams without going off the cliff, this is what I mean. How do you go through this phase of messy middle? And what are the 7 principles of entrepreneurial success to go from lifestyle to high performance to create the level of wealth and freedom you aspire to build through building a business asset? How many entrepreneurs have a true north life plan for themselves? A lot of entrepreneurs like myself get together with their entrepreneurial leadership teams at the beginning of every year and come up with a strategic business plan, which we will cover as well in these videos. But how many entrepreneurs really have a life plan for themselves and what they want to accomplish in life? When I experienced one of my biggest failures as an entrepreneur, I sat back and I wondered, what was I doing? I was growing a business for the sake of growing a business, but I really didn't have a life plan for myself. The tail was wagging the dog. I'm sure you feel like that a lot when you run your business. But what do you want as an entrepreneur? What do you want to accomplish in your life? There's a few methodologies that I've used to develop my true north life plan that I want to share with you. Number 1 is the Venn diagram, from the hedgehog concept, from good to great. In the Venn diagram, what Jim Collins talks about is where these 3 circles intersect. Where these 3 circles intersect is what success looks like. So you want to try and get to this level, that is success. That is what success would mean for you in your career. And so the 3 Venn diagram circles are, what are you most passionate about? What can you be the best in the world at? And what drives your economic engine? Okay, so think about that for a second. Think about what you're doing. Think about your business and how you are going through your career. Are you passionate about what you're doing? Do you believe that you could be the best in the world at what you do? Maybe you're not the best today, but could you be the best? And can it drive your economic engine? And a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, a lot of business people I talk to, have 2 of these 3 circles, but not all 3. They're really good at something. They make a lot of money, but they're not really passionate about it. Or they're really passionate about something. They could be the best in the world at it, but they don't know how to make money doing it. Trying to figure out where you can live in this Venn diagram is where success looks like. And it's the foundational principle to developing a life plan for yourself. Because if you can live here, that's where you'll find the happiness that you're striving to have in life. The next step to developing your True North life plan is to determine what is your one thing. The book by Gary Keller, The One Thing, is a very impactful business book, not only a business book, a life book, about what is the one thing you're ultimately trying to accomplish in your life. If you don't know where you're trying to go, any road will do. So in the book, The One Thing, what is that one thing that ultimately, think far into your life, think 30 years from now, where do you want to be? And you can think about it in all aspects of your life. Where do you want to be in your career? Where do you want to be financially? Where do you want to be spiritually? Where do you want to be with family? Where do you want to be with relationships? Where do you want to be with health? You can think of all the different segments of your life. Where do you want to be ultimately in your life in all of these different areas is critical to the foundation of developing a life plan for yourself. And the third part, which I call the True North life plan, is take this and think about it. In 30 years, where do you want to be in all of these different segments in 30 years from now? Identify what that's going to be. And then take it a step further. Okay, well, where do I need to be in 10 years to accomplish the 30-year plan, to feel like I'm on track towards those 30-year objectives in all these different areas? And then step back up again. Where do I need to be in 3 years in order to be on track for the 10-year plan, to be on track for the 30-year plan? Take it a step further. Where do I need to be in 1 year? Where do I need to be in 1 year to be on track to the 3-year plan, on track to the 10-year plan, on track to the 30-year plan? Take it a step further. This quarter. Where do I need to be this quarter to be on track for my annual plan? Where do I need to be this month? Where do I need to be this week? You get the idea. Where do I need to be today? Today I'm doing exactly what I need to do in order to accomplish my month, my quarter, my year, my 3-year, my 10-year, and my 30-year objective in some of these segments. What are you doing in this particular moment? Are you doing exactly that as well? And by doing this, you can develop your True North life plan. In the book, The $100 Million Journey, and at 100mjourney.com, you can download the $100 Million Journey workbook that provides you the exact framework to develop your True North life plan. It's time to develop your strategic business plan. You must have a True North life plan, though, or else your strategic business plan can be taking you somewhere where you as an entrepreneur ultimately don't want to go. Those two must be aligned. It's one of the biggest learnings I've had as an entrepreneur is how to align your True North life plan with your strategic business plan. So what is strategy anyway? Strategy is the process of deploying limited amount of resources, your people, your cash, your time, against an unlimited amount of opportunities that exist out there in the world. And way too often as entrepreneurs, we chase those shiny objects, not realizing that we're limited in the amount of resources we actually have to deploy against these opportunities. So think about that one more time. You have a limited amount of resources, cash, time, people, whatever, to deploy against an unlimited world of opportunities. How are you going to narrow down those opportunities and strategically focus your business around them? So as we go through this process, I borrowed principles from Vern Harnish's Scaling Up, Gary Keller's The One Thing, Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and let's just start right there. What is the why of your business? You've now identified your True North life plan, where you want to go, but what is the why of the business? And if you think about Simon Sinek's Start With Why, he has this golden circle that he draws. And there's a really good TED Talk. I'd encourage you to go search up on YouTube, Simon Sinek Start With Why. And he explains this fantastically, which is ultimately, a lot of companies know what they do. Some companies know how they do it, but very few companies know why they do what they do. So I'm not going to go through the Simon Sinek video here, But if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, if you don't know what this is right here for your business, that's a problem. So you first need to know why your company exists and what are you trying to accomplish. And again, it's very important. This must relate to your true north life plan. If your company is doing something that's not aligned with you personally, that's not a really good way to start. So you have your why. You know what you're trying to accomplish. You know how you're trying to accomplish it, but you must know why you exist as a business. And that's a very important exercise. I actually start all of my strategic business planning sessions by actually playing Simon Sinek's Start With Why video with my team. And we ask ourselves the question, why are we here? Why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish here? So now that you know that, let's go to the next step of the strategic business planning process, SWOT. So the first part of documenting is, what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? This is an age-old concept in business. You must have that. I actually have the teams that I meet with come prepared with what they think the SWOT is of the business prior to the meeting, so we can have a very effective brainstorm right off the bat on, do we all agree on our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Second part, what are our core values? And importantly, behaviors. So if you think about it, a lot of companies have their core values on the wall. Everybody talks about it, right? Oh, we have our posters on the wall and no one really knows what they are. But this is an opportunity to identify with the team not only what our core values are, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 core values we have as an organization, but what are the demonstrable behaviors that correspond to these core values and what is not. If you do this, you are violating our core values. I think a lot of companies miss this step right here of identifying the exact behaviors that go along with their core values. This needs to be part of the strategic business plan. The whole company needs to know exactly why you exist, what your SWOT is, what your core values are, and what are the behaviors that fit or don't fit the core values of your business. The third part is the mission, which goes back to the why. The vision, ultimately, what are you trying to create? And the BHAG. So again, credit to Jim Collins here for BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. What is that goal that scares the crap out of you and everybody in the room? What is that mission, vision, and BHAG that you're trying to accomplish as a business? And I encourage my entrepreneurs to really think big. Think beyond their level. This is really an ultimate, if you want to call it, destination of where you want to build your business. Not next year, not 10 years, maybe even 20 years from now. Where do you ultimately want to grow? I think it's Bill Gates who said a lot of people really underestimate what they can do in 10 years. They overestimate what they can do in 1 year, which is a different problem, but they underestimate what they can ultimately accomplish in their business if they can dream big and let loose a little bit. So that's a really important aspect of this. 4, what is your 3-year strategic plan? Where do you want to be in 3 years that if you were to get here, it would align to your mission, vision, and BHAG? So you go through what are the key thrusts and capabilities we need to have? What are some areas we need to expand our business? What are the team members we need to have on board? What are some of the processes and ultimate items we need to have on board? 5, you go through the 1-year plan, and that goes through really, I like to work on 5 key targets. What are 5 key areas targeted with SMART goals, shared, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time phase? That's the definition of the SMART acronym. For the 1 year, what are 5 key areas that will define success, as well as some KPIs for the 1-year plan? And the 6th part, on the far right column of the plan, is the quarterly. So what do you need to do? And what we do for the quarterly is we do 5 key items as well for each quarter. So in Q1, what are the 5 key things you need to accomplish in Q1 to be on track to your year plan, to be on track for your 3-year plan? What are the 5 key things you need to do in Q2? So this model is covered in the $100 million plan. Also, if you go to 100mjourney.com, we have the Strategic Business Plan Workbook, or the $100 million Journey Workbook, but within the $1 million Journey Workbook is the Strategic Business Plan template in Google Sheets or Excel that you can download and use for your team. If you need any assistance with that, please reach out to us at 100mjourney.com for a free consultation on how to build a strategic business plan for your business. Principle 1, protect and grow your equity. During my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't always respect the value of equity. Maybe it's my sports background. I always wanted to be surrounded with a team. I start my enterprises and bring on partners with me. Maybe I didn't have enough confidence. Maybe I didn't have the capital needed to start, or I didn't think I had the capital I needed to start the business. Maybe I just wanted to surround myself with friends and business partners so I wasn't alone. But regardless of the reason, I always did. I didn't really truly appreciate that in order to build a business asset that's going to create true wealth and freedom for you and your family, equity is one of the most important essential elements. I'd start a company around 25% ownership, maybe sometimes 33% ownership, and over time, guess what would happen? My equity ownership would go down. Why would it go down? Because I felt we needed to bring on investors. I mean, think about entrepreneurs these days. They brag about, oh, I raised $5 million, I raised $20 million. Well, guess what happens when you raise capital? Your equity percentage goes down. At the time that I got fired from the company I had co-founded after 15 years of building it to north of $50 million, I owned 8% of the company. I had started off already handicapped by bringing on partners to the business and having less than majority share ownership. But over time, as we brought on investors, my equity percentage went down. That is not protecting your equity. Conversely, in the company I built $100 million the right way, the equity percentage went up over time. I still started that way, unfortunately. I still started this way, but as time went on, I had so much confidence in what we were doing and the people I was doing it with that we acquired more equity along the way. We never brought on investors into the business and ultimately ended up with a majority ownership of the company. Two completely different spectrums here. It's critical to understand how to protect and grow not only the percentage of equity you have in the company and the units you own in the company, the shares you own in the company, but also the value of it. To further illustrate this example, I'm going to walk you through two scenarios. Scenario one, you own 100% of your business. In scenario two, you own 10% of your business. So two different examples. Now let's say your goal is to build $10 million of net worth through this business asset. Well, in order to get to $10 million, your enterprise value of your business in this scenario would need to be $10 million. In this scenario, however, it would need to be 10x the amount. It would need to be $100 million. And so you look at this, would you rather own 100% of a $10 million business or 10% of a $100 million business? I had this wrong. I glamorized building this large business and, hey, let's grow this business to $100 million. I thought that was the holy grail of entrepreneurship. What I didn't quite realize is to get from 10 million to 100 million, it's not 10x the work. It really, really isn't. It's actually more like 20x or 50x the work. This road from 10 million to 100 million is full of treacherous terrain. You see, if you think about the messy middle is all about trying to build your business ultimately to this pinnacle, but you're in this phase where it's like, oh yeah, we just got this big contract. Oh crap, we just lost our key employee. Oh great, we just built the business further. Oh crap, we just got sued by somebody. It's up and down and up and down, trying to build your business through the messy middle. It's also known as the growth paradox. If you think about the growth paradox, when your business is out of control like this, so out of control, and you're trying to rein it in, how do most entrepreneurs try and rein in their business in the growth paradox? They're trying to build their business, but they're realizing, oh my gosh, this is getting difficult. Guess what? They say, well, you know what? Let's go get more revenue. More revenue. Because more revenue will solve everything, right? Not quite. Because if you do succeed, let's say your revenue increases, well, guess what happens? More problems. Why do more problems happen when your revenue increases? Because guess what? You got to hire more employees. You need more cash. Growth takes cash, by the way. You may need more systems, more processes, so you enter into more problems. But what if your revenue doesn't increase? So let's say your revenue doesn't increase or stays stagnant. Well, guess what? Your business is still out of control. Nothing actually changed. This is called the growth paradox. So when you think about the growth paradox and the messy middle, which of these businesses would you rather have? Would you rather have the $10 million business that you owned 100% of or a $100 million business that you owned 10% of? The 100% road is a lot less risky, and that's why protecting and growing your own equity is so critical. Beyond the wealth you're trying to create through your equity value, there's another reason to protect your equity. How many times do you see partners going into business together only for it to fail years later and for it to be a big, messy divorce? Partnerships are much like a marriage. Do you go into a relationship and have the proper operating agreements, buy-sell agreements, really the prenup arrangements, so if this doesn't work, you know how to separate? Because believe me, all partnerships ultimately end. It may end well, it may not end well. You got to be prepared for both scenarios. How will this business end ultimately from an exit perspective, and what's the water flow of funds and how that work? But what if it doesn't work? What if the partnership just really isn't working? How are you going to divorce and move on is a critical element to figure out. And most importantly, if the partnership is not working out, to address that conflict quickly and decisively and make a decision. Way too many times we see partners stay in business for long periods of time, 3, 4, 5, 6 years plus. They know the partnership isn't working. They might not even be talking to each other anymore, but they feel like they have to stay in that relationship. So you have to address that relationship quick and early. There are also other partnership alternatives. A lot of entrepreneurs, when they bring people into their business after the founding start, they offer them equity way too loosely. They bring on a key employee. I'm going to give you 5%. Oh, come on board, an investor. I'm going to take some chips off the table. I'm going to give you 10%. Thank you. And over time, their equity gets diluted. So does their management control. So does their ability to create wealth through this instrument. There are other ways to provide equity to people joining your business that give them actually hard, real equity shares in the business. And the way that I've found, we'll talk about in a later principle, is phantom equity. How can you provide key team members with an opportunity to participate in the growth value appreciation of your business without actually giving them hard, cold equity? Oh, and one last thing. Never sell your equity unless you're getting 100% out. A lot of times, too many entrepreneurs dilute themselves over time for no good reason other than they just want to take some chips off the table or they want to bring other people into their business. If you're going to sell your equity, sell it. Get 100% out and move on. Don't take a minority stake in your business. That's not worth it. Grow, buy more equity in your business, invest behind yourself. As an entrepreneur, you're either going to invest in yourself and believe in yourself or you won't. Principle 2, build your own capital. You see, I can attribute all of my successes and business failures to one common denominator, cash. If you do not properly build net operating cash flow, you will at some point run out of oxygen, maybe become over-levered going to banks or investors, and you'll violate principle 1, protect and grow your equity. Let's grow to 100 million, or let's build this grand business is a fantastic vision, but how are you going to fund this? Alan Miltz, the co-author of the Cash chapter in Scaling Up, talks about this saying, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king and queen. If we had 100 entrepreneurs in this room and I asked everybody who manages their business on a monthly basis based on their profit and loss statement, 99 out of 100 hands would go up. And by the way, so would have mine. But Alan Mills says, wait a minute, just measuring your business's performance based on your profit and loss statement is like reading the first chapter of a murder mystery novel and knowing how the whole book's going to end. It doesn't work that way. Some companies and entrepreneurs look at their balance sheet, which is a little bit better, but you need to know your net operating cash flow. Don't be afraid to look. It's the most important metric you can actually measure. Alan Miltz interviewed 3,000 CEOs, and not one of them could tell them how to calculate net operating cash flow properly. I know I couldn't, and I bet you can't either. In the $100 million journey, we review the exact formula on how to calculate your net operating cash flow, and we provide a $100 million journey workbook that will give you an exact Google Sheet or Excel to punch in your numbers and calculate how much cash your business is generating. You see, a lot of entrepreneurs brag about their revenue or how much money they raised. They rarely talk about their profit, and they never talk about their cash because, quite simply, they don't even know how much cash they're generating. You see, for myself, when I experienced one of my biggest business failures, we were generating enough cash. We were reinvesting it, though, carelessly into other areas, which would then reduce our net operating cash flow. So we were growing ourselves poor. You don't want to be in that position. There are 4 tools I talk about in the book to help grow your net operating cash flow. One is the cash flow ladder. So think about the different segments of your business that you would like to evaluate. As an example, we did one on our customers. We took all of our top customers and we evaluated how much cash flow are these customers generating. What is the marginal cash flow percentage these customers generate for us? What we found was some of the customers we thought were our best customers were actually our worst performing cash flow customers. They were hurting our business and affecting our ability to generate net operating cash flow in order to grow. So we had to tweak them. One of the ways we tweaked our customers was with the power of one. Power of one is a model, again, from Vern Harnish's Scaling Up. Him and Alan Miltz in the Cash chapter talk about the power of one and how 1% changes in your business, whether it be pricing, or cost of goods sold, or overhead, or one-day changes in AR or APs can really augment your cash flow of your business and help your customers or segments of your business become more profitable to generate more net operating cash flow. The third opportunity that we look at to grow your net operating cash flow is to know your self-financeable growth rate. There's a Harvard Business Review How fast can your company afford to grow? Do you know how fast your company can afford to grow? Because I sure didn't. I would always go out and say, hey, let's grow to 20%. Next year, everybody, we got to grow 20%. The problem is I didn't actually realize that our self-financeable growth rate would tell us, based on our net operating cash flow, that we can only grow 5%. So where does that other 15% come from? Where's that other 15% of cash that you need to grow come from? Well, guess what? It came from bank debt. It came from going to get investor capital come into our business, and that would violate principle 1, protect and grow your equity. So you need to know how fast your company can afford to grow, your self-financeable growth rate. And the fourth one is the 3-year capital strategy. Jeffrey Unger, the founder and CEO of G2 Capital Advisors, has never met a CEO or an entrepreneur who can tell them very specifically what their 3-year capital strategy is. And again, I knew I couldn't, but if you want to grow 20% and you can only afford to grow 5%, where's this other 15% coming from exactly? If it is coming from banks, that's okay. But how are you going to pay that back? How are you going to grow your net operating cash flow to further increase your self-financeable growth rate? So at some point, you can actually grow 20% on your own cash flow. Where are you going to spend the money? What are the resources you need to invest in order to grow your self-financeable growth rate to get to the 20%? So what is your 3-year capital strategy? And again, we provide an exact worksheet on how to calculate that 3-year capital strategy in the $100 million workbook. Growth takes cash, and you can be a victim of your own success. If your business is so successful that it's growing, but you're going way too far above your skis, and you have to go hat in hand to investors and financiers to grow your business and violate principle 1. Without cash, your business can die. We need to win at the game of making cash. We need to build our own capital. Principle 3, reinvest smartly. What is the goal of reinvesting in your business? Well, it's to increase your net operating cash flow. Because if you increase your net operating cash flow, you'll increase your self-financeable growth rate, you'll increase the value of your business, and you'll be able to build the business of your dreams. But what if you reinvest carelessly? What if through reinvesting, your net operating cash flow goes down? Well, your self-financeable growth rate will go down. Your value will ultimately go down as well. You won't build your own capital. You'll have to go seek more capital from banks or investors, which will dilute your equity. Principle 1, protect and grow your equity. So you can see how these things all play together. You have to be careful to not be growing for growth's sake. A lot of us entrepreneurs chase these shiny objects. We have to have patient ambition. And each reinvestment we make must be made to grow the net operating cash flow of our business. If you think about the book, The Millionaire Next Door, we must be frugal as entrepreneurs as well. Protect every single penny. I've had way too many times in my entrepreneurial career on management-influenced waste, where I invest money. It could be a bad hire. It could be a different product or service line we thought was great, and it didn't work out. Think about the hundreds of thousands of dollars entrepreneurs waste through their own decisions that are reinvesting their dollars in an inappropriate manner. So we have to be really, really careful. We must have patient ambition. We must be patient along the way and not burn our cash flow. One of the ways we burn our cash flow is through large partner salaries or partner distributions. When the business gets to a lifestyle phase, we start making money, and next thing you know, we have these large partner distributions going out. Sometimes for tax reasons, we have to pay our tax bills, but in addition to that, partners just want to actually get some rewards for all the efforts they put into their business. But if you're sucking the cash out of that business, how are you going to actually grow your self-financeable growth rate? How are you actually going to grow the business of your dreams? So you have to be really careful when your business starts making money, not to siphon all the cash out of your business, but yet reinvest it so you can further your net operating cash flow, further your self-financeable growth rate, and further your value. So that's really, really important to start. The one important criteria before you start reinvesting wisely in your business is hitting your core capital target. Your core capital target has 3 different components. Tell me if you've hit these. A, 2 months of operating expenses in cash reserves, somewhere outside of your operating account. B, reserve for taxes. Again, outside of your operating account, do you have an account that has reserve for taxes? And C, debt-free. So here's why this core capital target is so important. If your business is debt-free, no bank loans, you've got cash reserves for both taxes and 2 months of operating expenses, you now have the empowerment, if you will, to reinvest in areas of your business with the excess cash flow to further grow your business. If you have debt on the books, you don't have a reserve for taxes, you don't have a safety net of reserves built up for operating expenses, should you be reinvesting in other areas? Probably not. Think about businesses during the most recent pandemic or past recessions. If they had these three things figured out in their business, they were surviving those periods of time. If they weren't, they were in big trouble. So try and achieve your core capital target as soon as possible, because as soon as you do, you can reinvest smartly in your business and be empowered. A lot of the companies that experience wild success have 10 times, not 2 months of cash reserves, they got 10 months of cash reserves, a year of cash reserves. They built up a nest egg so big they can weather any storm and get through it, but then they also have the opportunity to reinvest in areas that they see as opportunistic for their business. So achieving your core capital target is essential to the first step of reinvesting in your business. Now that you've achieved your core capital target, there are 4 areas of opportunity to reinvest smartly and wisely into your business. The first area is build operational capacity. I'm not talking about here hiring more employees. That's not building capacity necessarily as it is just bringing more people to your business. Your business needs to be scalable, and the way to scale is to build operational capacity. There's a lot of tools, a lot of softwares, there's artificial intelligence. Ultimately, you've got to make your team and or your manufacturing process or whatever it may be more efficient. Continue to deliver great quality at a higher quantity to further increase the margins of your business. Before you reinvest anywhere, this needs to be built up. You need to make sure that whatever you're producing, you can produce at the best margins possible. Number 2 is marketing and sales. You must know what your winning products and services are. In Principle 2, Build Your Own Capital, we walk through the cash flow ladder. In the cash flow ladder, it helps you diagnose by service or product line, business segment, division, customer, whatever it may be, what are your most profitable areas of business from a cash flow perspective. Once you know this, if you know what your marketing and sales KPIs are, you can double down. And I'll give you a really good example, okay? Let's say you want to grow your business by $1 million in sales. If you know your KPIs, your key performance indicators, you should know how to reinvest in marketing and sales in order to generate $1 million in revenue. So for example, if your average product size or average job size or whatever it may be is $2,000, just to work your way backwards from a math perspective, you would need 500 sales at $2,000 to generate $1 million. Well, if your success ratio is 35%, that means you would need 1,500 leads at a 35% success ratio to generate 500 sales at a $200,000 job size at $1 million in revenues. You can work your way backwards. And if you knew that it cost you $50 per lead, then you know you need to invest around $70,000 in marketing to generate 1,500 leads at $50 a pop, a 35% success ratio, if your success ratio is consistent, generate 500 sales to get $200,000 by sales of $1 million of revenues. You can work this model back and forth because if you know what your KPIs are, you know how much you can invest here to generate the revenues. Do you know your sales KPIs cold? It's very important. Step 3 is new business segments. Fair warning here. Before going to invest in any new shiny object business segments your company currently doesn't perform, you must attain your core capital target. You must seek out opportunities to build your operational capacity and really squeeze that lemon. You must know your marketing and sales KPIs and double down on your winning products and services. And then and only then have you maximized all those opportunities should you be looking at new business segments. In my entrepreneurial career, I always sought new business segments. I thought it was a way for us to grow and diversify our company. But when I took $1 million, say, hey, let's go start this new business segment over here, but I knew for the next 3 or 4 years that new business segment was going to take consistent reinvestment of cash flow. By doing that, it decreases your net operating cash flow on an annual basis. It decreases your self-financeable growth rate. It decreases your value, makes you go get investors and other capital, hurts your equity position. So you should only look to grow in new business segments that are tangential to your business if you know your marketing and sales KPIs and you've doubled down on your winners, if you've built operational capacity, and if you've attained your core capital target. The 4th area is mergers and acquisitions. I like to call this the high risk, high reward. Again, fair warning, you should not be looking at mergers and acquisitions unless you've achieved all the steps ahead of it. But if you have, small little tuck-under acquisitions and mergers to diversify your product lines, add on to your team, could really, really jump the value of your company. But again, you must be able to finance it. You must have hit your core capital target. You must be in a position that's sound for your business to grow, and take small bites. Take small bites that you can chew and incorporate intelligently. Do proper financial due diligence, do proper cultural diligence, proper legal diligence. Take your time, have patient ambition. If you don't reinvest smartly in your business, you will affect your ability for your company to grow. You will affect your ability to build capital. You will affect your ability to protect and grow your equity. These are all tied together. You violate principle 3, you'll automatically violate principle 2 and 1, and it would really suck if you attain principle 1, attain principle 2, and then have management influence waste on this side that doesn't help you grow and protect your equity of your business and ultimately grow the value of business. Principle 3, reinvest smartly. Principle 4, build a culture of entrepreneurship. Before we know how to build a culture of entrepreneurship, we must know what an intrapreneur is anyway. So I've designed this little graph here to show you what I mean by the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur. On this far left, you have an entrepreneur. They have basically a high level of risk and a high level of reward. They're putting all their blood, sweat, and tears into this business. Sometimes they're not getting paid, but they ultimately, seek to get the best reward out of this opportunity. Whereas on the far right, you have an employee. An employee is getting paid for their time, so their risk is pretty low and their reward is pretty low. But in the middle is the sweet spot. How do you build a culture of entrepreneurship and bring entrepreneurs into your business where their risk is still pretty low, but their reward can also be medium to high? How do you create that environment where these entrepreneurs may someday run your business? That's really where the magic is. Imagine building a loyal team that treated the business as if it was their own. And ultimately, if you want to build a business asset for yourself, you cannot be the chief cook and bottle washer. You got to build a passive business investment. Rich Dad, Poor Dad talks about 4 different types of assets that you can build to create wealth. 1 is a business asset, which is what we're talking about here today. 2 is real estate assets. 3 are stocks. And 4 are commodities. So if you think about these 4 different types of assets that you can build, if you wanted to build real estate assets and create wealth through real estate, would you just go buy one property and say, okay, I've done it, I created a real estate asset? No, you'd buy hundreds of real estate properties. That's what real estate investors do. They don't just buy one. Same thing with stocks or commodities. You don't just buy one stock or one commodity and call it a day and create wealth for yourself. No, you buy a lot of them, you trade them, you work within them. But yet we as entrepreneurs start sometimes one business, put our blood, sweat, years, and tears into that one business, working 80 hours a week. We're overstressed, overworked, underpaid, not spending enough time with our family, trying to create that one business asset. Well, guess what? We're a business operator, not a business owner. We're actually working for a lunatic too. We're working for ourselves. That really sucks. You got to be able to build business assets that can work without you, but the only way to do that is to build a culture of entrepreneurship, to build this business asset that can actually operate without you. So I'm going to walk through the steps that you can actually do that. The first step is you need to perform behavioral-based interviews. If you think about the way that entrepreneurs interview, hire, and train their employees in small and medium-sized businesses, it's abysmal. We really don't do a good job of onboarding people into our business. Right now, the way the economy is and the way the workplace is, it's hard to find a warm body to come work for you. So yes, I get it. But if you do not bring the right people into your business and hire, train, and develop them properly, you'll never build a culture of entrepreneurship and you'll be stuck running your business forever. So running behavioral-based interviews is critically important, and we need to get better at that interviewing process. As we talk about in your strategic business plan, you also need to know what your core values are and what the core values are of the business very specifically from a behavioral point of view. Not only what your core values are, but what are the behaviors that exemplify this core value, and/or what are the behaviors that do not demonstrate that core value? You need to be very clear, you and your team, on what those are. And when you have candidates that are coming to you, you need to interview them based on those criteria. A lot of times, way too many entrepreneurs are looking for that skill set as opposed to the behaviors that you can teach them the skills, but if they have the behaviors to be more entrepreneurial or follow your core values in the business, you can actually help that person grow and prosper within your company. So it's really, really important to hire correctly. Number 2 is situational leadership. Think about people you've worked for in the past, the good leaders and the bad leaders. And a lot of times the leaders that you didn't connect with the most were those that micromanaged you or tried to manage you in a way that didn't actually work for you. And that's because they did not exemplify the skill of situational leadership. And the skill of situational leadership is pretty simple. In the book, The $100 Million Journey, it talks a little bit more about the situational leadership model developed by Ken Blanchard and the 1 Minute Manager. But to put it simply, if you think about this graph, where on one side, it's how committed is someone to do the task, and on this axis, it's what is their competency? How good are they at doing the task? Well, depending on where they fit on this chart, you may manage them differently. If they don't have the competency to do the work, but they're committed to do it, you may manage them one way. Or if they're low commitment, but they have high competency, you may need to push them to do the work. So in the book and in the situational leadership model, we talk about how to manage people situationally based on where they are at. Meet them where they are at and guide them to develop the skills and competency so at some point all of your employees are highly committed and highly competent at doing the roles that they do, including replacing a lot of the roles that you do. And what that will do is it will build the speed of trust. If you think about Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, this is a very, very simple formula, but it's one of the most important formulas you have. If you have low trust with your team, well, guess what that means? The speed to do things is going to go down, and the cost to do things is going to go up. So think about that formula. If you have low trust with you and your team or within your team, the speed to do things will go down and the cost will go up. That's not a very good formula. Conversely, if your trust is high within a team or with you as the leader and the people you work with, well, guess what? The speed to do things will go up and the cost to do things will come down. That is where you create a business that's flourishing. So you need to have that speed of trust with your team, and the way to develop a speed of trust with your team is have situational leadership and lead your team in the right way. We're all tired of the micromanagers that are managing people today. It just doesn't work anymore. Employees don't want that. Team members don't want that. They want to work in an environment where they feel led and mentored by their leadership. So by having the situational leadership component mastered, you can really build a culture of trust within your team. The third area to build a culture of entrepreneurship is to provide the authority and freedom to your team so they can prosper. When we talk about authority and freedom, you think about today's workplace and the freelance society that exists and everything out there, people working from home. Gone are the days where you can really micromanage people from hour to hour. You've got to provide them with the authority and the freedom. Stop micromanaging them, empower them, provide them clear expectations and rewards to go do the job they do, and then measure them based on that. And if they succeed, they can move forward. I call it servant leadership. How can you be a servant leader to your team? And when I talk about servant leadership, what I'm really talking about here is the inverse org chart. So if you think about an org chart, think about it the other way around. Instead of your team working for you, why don't you work for your team? Help and mentor them towards they want to go. So are you a leader, are you a manager, or are you a mentor? There's a big difference between all three of those. Which one are you? Better yet, if I asked your team, are you a manager, a leader, or a mentor, what would they say? And think about the best mentors you've ever had in your life. What if you could be a mentor to key people in your team to help them become more entrepreneurial in your business, help them grow and prosper within your company? If you think about it from a reverse org chart perspective, customers, you guys all work for your customers in a certain way, right? You have your team, then you have your leaders or your intrapreneurs that are here, and then there's you. Reverse the org chart. You work for them and not the other way around. Become a mentor to help them achieve their goals and dreams as being a part of your business, and things will really happen a lot faster for you and your company. The fourth way to build a culture of entrepreneurship is with equity incentives. Now, I'm not suggesting that you violate principle number one, which is protect and grow your equity. You do need to protect and grow your own equity. Don't give your entrepreneurs real equity in the business, but provide them with an equity incentive. I like to call phantom equity. I'll give you an idea of how a phantom equity structure works, but on the surface, when you think about phantom equity, Think about the word phantom. It's not real equity. Real equity, you get shares and units, you're part of the operating agreement, you get tax documents every year, maybe some voting rights. Phantom equity, it's none of that. It's really a bonus appreciation opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to build a bonus nest egg that's paid out as a bonus through payroll, ultimately at some point in the future. And so to give you an idea of how I structure these, if the current value of your business was $5 million today, you would hope to grow that value. Even if your entrepreneurs don't do really that good of a job, you hope to grow the value of your business over time. So I strongly suggest that entrepreneurs create a threshold value. And for the purposes of this example, I'll say $6 million. So if the entrepreneurs grow the business to be worth more than $6 million, I'm willing to participate in some of that growth with them to help me on this journey. What I typically like to do is say, okay, I'm also going to create a vesting period, and I usually make that 5 years with a 3-year cliff. What that means is that if you're an entrepreneur in my business and you're going to participate in this plan, you have to be here for at least 3 years in order for you to begin vesting. At the 3rd year point, you're vested 60%. 4th year, you're vested 80%. 5th year, you're vested 100%. And now you can participate in the growth over $6 million. You also got to determine what your pool is going to be. As an example, let's say you're willing to allow your entrepreneurs to participate in 10% of the growth over $6 million. So the first $6 million of value is for you, the entrepreneur, and or your partnership of equity owners, real equity owners. But anything over $6 million, your team of entrepreneurs get to participate at a value of 10%. So as an example, if the company grows to be worth $16 million, you've basically created a delta of $10 million of value with your entrepreneurs. So the first $10 million of value, the entrepreneurs will get 10%, and the entrepreneurs, the owners of the company, will get 90%. Then the other 6 will only go to the entrepreneurs, and that will go only to those shareholding owners of the company. So if you had a pool of 10%, let's say you had 10 entrepreneurs and they each added 1% of the growth, they would get 1% of the 10 million for their participation in helping grow that business above their salaries, above their other bonus programs, but for them to actually participate in the growth of your business. Creating a phantom equity program, an equity incentive, treating your team with authority and freedom, giving the authority and freedom to do their roles and be a servant leader, practicing situational leadership and not managing everybody the same all the time, but managing and meeting them where they need to be at to help them develop their skill sets, and bring the right people into your business with behavioral-based interviewing will help you build a culture of entrepreneurship in your business, and someday the entrepreneurs in your company may very well run your business. Principle 5, protect the house. If you're not protecting your company, who is? You see, a lot of times we hear from leaders and mentors, you got to work on your business, not in your business. It's easier said than done, because when you're working in the depths of your business, 60, 80 hours a week, stressed out, trying to get through the growth paradox in the messy middle, how will you have time to work on the business? But if you accomplish principle 1, protect and grow your equity, principle 2, build your own capital, principle 3, you've reinvested smartly, principle 4, you've built a culture of entrepreneurship. If you fall asleep on principle 5, protect the house, you could lose everything. Being an entrepreneur is like playing a game of whack-a-mole. You hit 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6 pop up. Or if you have a boat with 100 holes in it, you plug 99, guess where the water is going to come through? It's going to come shooting through that one hole you didn't plug in your boat. You have an ethical responsibility to protect your business, and it could be devastatingly dangerous. I've had an experience where I didn't protect my business enough. I put myself in a vulnerable position. I put the business in a vulnerable position, and it hurt a lot of people. You have to protect the house. And I'm going to go through 8 ways that you can actually protect your house as best as possible, but you cannot ignore this principle. You need to take the time to rise above the trees, look down on your business, and see where you might be vulnerable. One of the key components I ask entrepreneurs all the time is, who are your protectors? Who do you have on your team? Who is sitting around the table helping you protect your business? You pay a lot of professionals. I'm sure you pay a CPA, an attorney, maybe others. Are they helping you protect your business? Because they should be. So do you have the right team of protectors? Again, do you have a world-class CPA? Not the mom and pop tax accountant down the street who does personal taxes. Do you have somebody who's experienced in business taxes? Do you have a wealth advisor who's helping you look at how to preserve wealth and we're going to go through principle 6 here in a second, accessing owner's liquidity. How do you preserve the wealth that you're building? Do you have the right attorneys? And there's different forms of attorneys. Do you have a corporate attorney, a litigation attorney, an estate attorney? Do you have the attorneys that can help you protect you? Do you have mentors and advisors? Who do you have mentoring you and advising you? I'll tell you what, being an entrepreneur can be an absolutely lonely job. Who do you call when you need help? In my business today, I didn't have this before, but right now I have all these advisors that are sitting around me, and me and my partners don't make any decisions unless we have the unanimous approval of all of our protectors. It's critically important. Number 2, do you perform vulnerability assessments on your business? And I'm sure the answer is no. We don't have time to do this. We don't have time to perform vulnerability assessments on your business. Well, guess what? That's where the one hole in your boat, water is going to come shooting through. In the $100 million journey, in the $100 million journey workbook, I provide a vulnerability assessment checklist. You can actually go through, build yourself a risk committee, assign it to your team if you need to. Find out where there are risk elements in your business that you need to plug. Number 3, corporate governance and processes. I'll tell you what, just think about it from an HR perspective. A lot of companies don't have tight HR policies. Think about a time maybe you've been sued by a former employee. There's a lot of ambulance chasers out there right now too that are looking for situations where they can actually hold a company accountable for not having tight governance and processes within their business. So are your HR policies tight? Are your financial approval processes tight? Is everything within your business tightened up? Do you have resolutions? Do you have your corporate minutes together? On an annual basis, are you documenting that in your corporate file? Do you have all that together? And chances are you don't, because I didn't either. But it's so important to protect your business and protect the house to have really good governance, corporate governance, and processes. 4, insurance coverage. Did you know that there are other ways to protect your business from extraordinary events? A lot of entrepreneurs just go get the traditional commercial liability policy through an insurance agent down the street. But there are insurance agents and brokers who can fully protect your business in a lot of different ways. Have you ever heard of a captive insurance program as an example? I couldn't believe the types of coverages you can get from that. Loss of key customer, loss of key employee, cyber threat, crime, workplace violence, and a whole bunch of other insurance coverages you can't get traditionally that can further protect your business. Are you properly covered? Are you assessing your coverages on an annual basis to make sure you have all the areas of your business covered? 5, customer risk. Now, when I talk about customer risk, the first thing that should come to mind is credit. Are you extending too much credit to your customers that if one customer goes bankrupt, it could hurt you? We had a customer in the 2008 recession go bankrupt on us. They owed us $225,000. It almost killed the business. We went months trying to survive from that. We ultimately did, but it wasn't without a lot of sacrifice. What about your customer concentration ratio? Do only 1 or 2 of your customers do 80% of your revenues? That's a problem. You need to diversify your customer base. You can't have too much risk, customer concentration risk with 1 or 2 large customers. You got to assess their credit risk. Customers can really hurt you if not managed properly. 6, financial controls. Think about the financial controls you have in your business. Do you have tight financial controls in place with your accounting and finance department? Way too many times as entrepreneurs, we grow our sales and marketing, we grow our operations, and the last thing on our minds is our finance division. We don't build that up robust enough with the right systems and controls and processes and separation of duties. Does the person opening the checks deposit them and also record them in the system and also cut checks and sign them? That doesn't necessarily work. We've had many situations over the past 20 years where there was some theft and slippage within our finance department alone. As a matter of fact, one of our companies even got caught with a $250,000 wire fraud situation where our controller received an email that looked like it was from me asking them to wire money globally, but unbeknownst to her, it actually didn't come from me. It was actually an email scam that happened, and we ended up wiring money. We didn't have the right dual authentication approval processes for wires. Do you have all your controls in place for financial controls and make sure you're protecting your business? 7, one-door decisions. Think about it. Think about a one-door decision versus a two-door decision, okay? So here's a building, and here's a door, okay? If you don't have another door on the back and something happens, you can't get out. So you let something in, you can't get out if there's no back door. You don't have this, you only have a one-door decision. You can get trapped and get in real big trouble here. Whenever you're making a one-door decision, you got to bring all your protectors in place. You got to assess all the vulnerabilities. You got to be pretty darn sure that's the right decision. What I like to recommend to entrepreneurs is make two-door decisions. Make decisions that if something doesn't work, you can actually get out. As an example, if you hire an employee, a new employee, give them a 90-day probation period. It's not working out, you can let them go, no harm, no foul. That's a two-door opportunity, right? You go get a bank loan, you can pay back the bank, you can get out of it, it's fine. But there are some instances like you bring investors into your company, you don't necessarily have this back door. They're now a part of your company. They're part of your cap table. They're part of your voting mechanism. They're part of this whole thing. You don't have a two-door opportunity. It could be a big problem. So I highly recommend to entrepreneurs, make two-door decisions as many times as possible. Anytime you make a decision, whatever it may be, make sure you have an out built into it already. Otherwise, you're making a one-door decision and it can be very dangerous. And last but not least at all is beware of snakes. Beware of snakes. There's a book called Snakes in Suits. And what you don't actually realize is that not everybody's in business for the right reasons. Not everybody's coming to be a good, faithful partner, investor, employee in your business. You've got to beware of those snakes that are trying to siphon the life out of you. And it could be people in your business today, they don't intend to be snakes, but they suck all your energy out. They're negative, they draw your culture down. You can't have that as a part of your business. Beware of who you're surrounding with, who you're bringing on your team, who you're partnering with, who you're hiring, which investors you're bringing on board, which banks you're working with. You've got to beware of snakes in suits. You have to protect the house. If you do not protect the house, everything can flow downhill. If you don't protect the house, you're not going to be able to build a culture of entrepreneurship. You're not going to be able to reinvest smartly. You're not going to be able to build your own capital. You're not going to be able to protect your equity. You could lose everything. Principle 6, access owner's liquidity. This has got to be one of the most exciting principles of them all, because ultimately, if you're trying to create wealth and freedom from your business, you've got to access the liquidity that you're building up within it. And we'll talk about all the ways you can do that. But when you think about it, when do entrepreneurs typically get paid? When do they typically get in a position where they can actually get liquidity for what they've built? When they exit or when they sell their shares. And I'm going to go through minority investments, majority investments, sale of 100%. But ultimately, there's a power to creating passive income through your business asset. A lot of entrepreneurs who create wealth through business assets create their business in a form that can continue to pay them year in and year out. And ultimately, what this principle talks about is that if this is your business's balance sheet, and there's money here on your business's balance sheet, why is it there? Because you've reinvested for growth. It's caught up in working capital. It's caught up in inventory. It's caught up in a whole bunch of elements here. How do you move that to your personal balance sheet? Every family, every household has their own personal balance sheet. But how do you move this money from here to here in a tax-efficient manner without selling your equity and violating Principle 1? How does this happen? Well, there's a lot of ways it can happen, but the problem is most entrepreneurs don't know about them. So what I talk about here in Principle 6, access owner's liquidity, is all the ways that you can actually get liquidity for what you've built, move your assets from one balance sheet to another in a tax-efficient manner. That's a win for you, the owner, a win for the entrepreneurs and the business, a win for everybody. What are the ways you can do this? How can you move it from one balance sheet to another? First of all, let's just talk about some of the ways that traditionally entrepreneurs get liquidity for what they've built. One is they seek out a minority investor, or they sell a minority of their shares. Let's say you own 100% of your company and you've built something nice and you want to get some money for it. What a lot of entrepreneurs do is sell a piece of their business. Let's say you sell 20% of your equity in a business and you get liquidity for that 20%. Well, that just violated Principle 1. You just brought somebody else into the henhouse. You got another person at the table. Even though they own a minority share, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have a say. They probably have some voting rights. If they're a sophisticated investor, they probably added in some veto rights, some things they have to oversee or approve upon. You just made your life a lot more complicated. If you truly believe in your business and truly believe what you're doing, why would you ever do this? Not highly recommended. Even worse is when you sell a majority stake in your company. Countless entrepreneurs have sold a majority in their business They retain 40 or 30% or whatever it may be, but they lost complete control of their business. Their culture completely changes. The people they care about get mistreated. The business doesn't actually build what it aspired to build when you were leading it. You sold the majority because you wanted to get your chips off the table. You wanted to kind of cash in a little bit. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, why would you ever do that? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And the third way is they sell 100%. They get out. Now, I'll tell you right now, a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you this as well. Those who have sold their businesses, they sold the minority, they sold the majority, or they've had experience in these areas. If you're going to sell anything, just sell and get out. If you're done, just get out. But why does that happen? Why do entrepreneurs sell and get out if they truly love their business, if they truly want to keep building it? But why do they do that? Because they want to monetize what they've built. They're scared that if they don't monetize this right now, they're not going to be able to ultimately exercise that, or they want to enjoy the fruits of what they've built today. Or maybe worse yet, maybe they're tired. Maybe they haven't built a culture of entrepreneurship in their business and they're the chief cook and bottle washer doing everything in their business. They have to sell and get out. Otherwise, they have to work in the business all the time and can't generate the passive income they're looking for. If you implement principles 1 through 5 properly, you should be able to create a business asset that can generate liquidity, generate passive income for you without you being there every day. But if you can't, maybe selling it and getting 100% out is the only thing to do. Now, before you consider any of these, or what I'm going to share with you in other opportunities to access owner's liquidity, you must have your protectors and advisors around you. Professional small business, medium-sized business CPAs that are experienced in this area, legal guidance, wealth advisors and guidance. You've got to have mentors and advisors around you to recommend all the different tools and resources that you can use. Let's walk through some examples of how partners can move their liquidity from one balance sheet to another. Let's go through example 1, which is distributions, okay? So think about this. One way to move money from one balance sheet to your personal balance sheet is to do a distribution to partners. Well, if you're in that position, chances are this is a taxable event. So let's say you decide you're going to distribute $1 million to the partners. So that's going to go out of the business, $1 million. Well, chances are, whether it be the company or the individuals, will probably face around $400,000 of taxes from that distribution. In that particular scenario, the owners get $600,000, the government gets $400K, and the business just lost $1 million in their balance sheets. The business balance sheet lost $1 million, $400,000 went to Uncle Sam or taxes, and the owners got $600,000. The business was weakened by $1 million, and the owners got $600K. That's one way to move money from one balance sheet to the other, but not really a good idea. You're basically taking money out of the business, and you're not able to compound and reinvest this money in your business and get the tax advantages of it, so you're not going to experience the compounding wealth opportunity. One opportunity to move balance sheet assets from your business balance sheet to your personal balance sheet is to create a safe harbor 401k cash balance plan. There are tremendous benefits with a safe harbor 401k cash balance plan. Okay, first off, by the definition of safe harbor, what that means is it satisfies the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. The way it satisfies that requirement, the ERSA requirement, is everybody gets a 3% match. A lot of companies, if you participate, they'll match when you participate up to a certain amount. In the safe harbor plan, everybody gets it. Whether you participate in the 401k plan or not, everybody gets 3% of their income in their retirement plan. So first off, it's a win for the employees. It works. But the second part of it is the cash balance. What that really means is it combines the defined benefit plan with a defined compensation plan. And what that means is by doing some profit sharing over here, if your company has some profits, you can actually put more money into your employees' 401k plan. And it becomes a profit sharing part of this plan. But here's the twist. You are also an employee of that company. As an owner, I think the limit here in 2023 is around $23,000 or so that you can put in your 401k. But by executing a safe harbor 401k cash balance plan, you can put up to 10 times that amount in your personal 401k plan as an owner, while also giving your employees an automatic 3% match and profit sharing in their 401k plans. It's a win-win-win for everybody, and I cover that more deeply in this book. And in the $100 million workbook, we provide some articles as well. You can go do research on this so you can discuss with your CPA. But if you think about it from this perspective, your business has $1 million of taxable net income. And what you do is you say, you know what? We're going to put some money into the 401k plan. So within all of this, you put $450,000 into the profit sharing plan for your employees. Well, now your company's taxable income is $550,000. This $450K went to you, the owners, and the employees' retirement plan. You're moving it to personal balance sheets from the company. The taxable income just went down to around $550,000. This is going to provide a tax savings ultimately to you and the business. The business has $450K that's going out this way, and the tax benefits probably equal around $180,000 of tax savings by this move. 40% of the money that you're moving over here versus going to tax. You have 40% of this going to tax, around $220K is going to go to tax. So compared to the prior scenario, your tax that's going to the government is less. You're putting more money on you and your company's balance sheet, and it's a win for everybody involved. This is a way to tax efficiently move money from balance sheet A, your business, to balance sheet B, your personal balance sheet. In Principle 5, Protect the House, I talked about a captive insurance program and how that can protect and help your business against these extraordinary risks that exist. But there's also another benefit to a captive insurance program. The benefit is when you set up a captive insurance program, what you're ultimately doing is you're setting up an entity to which you and your owners own, which is an insurance company. You're basically self-insuring your company against these extraordinary coverages. Coverages like loss of key employee, loss of key customer, cyber threat, workplace violence, defense litigation costs, a whole bunch of other coverages you just cannot get by going to your commercial insurance broker. Those exist in your captive insurance policy that you can self-insure. In the exact same example I've been giving, if your business has $1 million of taxable income, that's how much you'd have to pay if you distributed that all out, but you decided to do a captive program. And so you decide, I'm going to create a $250,000 policy that's going to go to the captive company, which is your company, by the way. So the money's going to another company's balance sheet to which you own. Your taxable income is now $750K versus $1 million. You've just moved $250,000 of taxable income to another balance sheet, which will be taxed at capital gains rates versus in this scenario is going to be taxed at ordinary income rates. Something to talk to your accountant about. But in this particular example, you basically now have reduced your taxable liability. You're going to pay tax on this, as you know, and you'll create another savings here from the tax you're not paying on this, which is around $100,000 savings in tax that you're actually moving this money from your business's balance sheet to your captive balance sheet. So this is a net where ultimately you have the benefit of the insurance coverages and you're reducing your tax liability by moving the money to another company's balance sheet, which will be taxed at lower interest rates. A phenomenal program to look at. Another way I talk about in the book, The $100 Million Journey, on how to access your owners' liquidity in a tax-efficient manner is by setting up a Series LLC holding company. When you start generating net income and taxable net income from your primary business, again, as we talked about before, you can distribute that and pay your taxes and move money to your balance sheet, but it's not very efficient. And if you think about business A, which maybe is making $1 million, another way to basically have that money keep working for you in a compounding manner, let's say it's business A, is to create business B. And by investing in business B through a series holding company, you get the tax benefits and the legal protections of another business. And a lot of times, let's say you invest some money here, you say, I'm going to go acquire another business or invest in another business, and we're going to put $300,000 to invest in that particular business. You're reducing your taxable income, and a lot of times that business could have accelerated depreciation as well, where you can get a lot more benefit than this. But your taxable income comes down if you invest $300,000 into a new business, if you're starting up a new business segment or whatever it may be within your own business. But by creating a Series LLC holding company, ultimately what you're doing is you're kind of setting up this holding company here, and you have your business A, and you have your business B, and maybe eventually you'll have your business C and D and such. But all these businesses can all get tax benefits separately and all have the legal protections associated with them. Let me provide a summary example on how these opportunities can work for you. And I gave you the example this whole time about a business making $1 million. Well, think about it this way. If your business made $1 million and you decided to do a safe harbor 401k cash balance plan, and put $450,000 towards that safe harbor 401k cash balance. And you decided to do a captive policy. And in your captive policy, you decided to do $250,000 towards your captive to get all the additional extraordinary coverages that you need and start your own captive insurance company to self-fund your captive policy. And then you decided to start a new business which required an investment of your cash and expertise and such of $300,000 for starting a new co. Well, if you look at it from this perspective, how much taxable income did your business have? Your business had zero taxable income. What you did is you reinvested in your team and yourself. You reinvested in a captive insurance company and protected your business. And you started a new company, which hypothetically will have new employees and foster growth as well. Guess what? That's what the government wants you to do. They want you to reinvest your earnings to further grow business, which will further help people grow, which will help them spend more money, which will collect more taxes ultimately. This is absolutely one way to move your liquidity from balance sheet A to balance sheet B, because in this scenario, in the 401k program, you just provided in your 401k plan 10 times the amount you can provide regularly. You've funded your captive insurance company, which you own, so this $250,000 went to your captive insurance policy, and pending there's no major claims, you're actually building another business asset, and you're diversifying into a new business. By doing this, you're able to access your owner's liquidity, but also further prepare yourself to move from CEO to chairperson, which is principle number 7. Principle 7, move from CEO to chairperson. If you've done principles 1 through 6 right, you've prepared yourself to build a business asset that can generate passive income for you and your family so you can actually become more strategic and less operational. You can replace yourself with succession in your business, and you can finally rise above the trees and see what's going on in the distance. We're told all the time as entrepreneurs, work on your business, not in your business. Well, it's a lot easier said than done when you're in the trenches, really dig in the dirt, trying to get your business to success. But as I talked about earlier in our journey, when you're trying to go from a lifestyle to a high-performance business, this area is full of cliffs, full of pitfalls, full of dangerous areas. We call that the messy middle. It's where you experience the growth paradox. And if you don't apply the 7 principles to your business, you'll get stuck in here and potentially face a business mortality event like I did. It's really, really important. If you want to build and mature your business assets so it can actually become an asset for you that creates passive income and wealth and freedom for you and your family, this is the way to do it. Principle 1, you have to protect and grow your equity. You must protect it at all costs, at all times. Never give it away loosely. Protect it. There are ways to bring people into your business and motivate them and incent them through phantom equity programs without having to make them be a partner of your business. Never dilute your equity. Buy more equity. If you don't believe in what you're doing, go do something else. But if you believe in what you're doing, invest in it. Grow your equity percentage in that business. Grow your equity value in that business, because that is ultimately the vehicle to which you'll create wealth through your business. Principle 2, build your own capital. You cannot grow faster than your company can afford to grow. There's something called the self-financeable growth rate. If your self-financeable growth rate says you can grow 5%, you can't go growing 50%. You need to actually increase your self-financeable growth rate, and the way to grow that is by generating net operating cash flow and measuring how much cash flow your business generates. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king and queen. You need to know how much net operating cash flow you generate and do everything possible to build more capital, build more cash flow, so you don't have to go hat in hand to financiers, bankers, investors, which will ultimately dilute principle 1, protect and grow your equity. Principle 3, reinvest smartly. If you don't reinvest smartly and you reinvest carelessly, and believe me, I have done that, it will affect your ability to build your own capital. It will affect your ability to protect your equity. You must reinvest smartly in your business, slowly and strategically. Hit your core capital target, have cash reserves, be debt-free, and then slowly but surely expand your operational capacity, build your sales and marketing and the products and services that really drive your business, potentially diversifying into new business segments, maybe even go to mergers and acquisitions. But you must do it smartly and wisely with one purpose. Your purpose of reinvesting in your business is to grow your net operating cash flow so you can build more capital and you can protect your equity. Principle 4, build a culture of entrepreneurship. If you do 1, 2, and 3 properly, but you don't do number 4, well, guess what? You're going to continue to be a slave to your business in perpetuity. You have to build a team that will someday run your business, and you might be surprised. The best person to run your business may not be you. It may be an entrepreneur that you develop and mentor through your business. Who are you mentoring today? How many people are you mentoring within your business? Are you managing them, leading them, or mentoring them? Build a culture of entrepreneurship where people can flourish and be a part of the business. Give them an opportunity to participate in the equity value appreciation of the business. That is how you'll build a culture of entrepreneurship. Principle 5, protect the house. If you're not protecting the house, no one is. You must protect your business at all costs. You must do vulnerability assessments. Surround yourself around the table with the advisors that you can look in the eyes and they can tell you point blank where these decisions are good decisions or bad decisions. If you don't have 5 or 6 people around the table guiding you, you could be in trouble. Being an entrepreneur is a lonely job. Pay for the advisors that are going to give you the right advice and make sure that you bring on the people on your team that you trust and that will look you in the eyeballs and tell you when they think you're heading in the wrong direction. Principle 6, access owner's liquidity. This game becomes a lot more fun when you can access the owner's liquidity that's within your business's balance sheet and slowly but surely move it over to your personal balance sheet and build the wealth that you aspire to build. But there are ways to do that in tax-efficient manners that work for you, work for your employees, work for the company, work for everybody, and ways to do that in inefficient manners that just sucks the oxygen out of the business where you have a hard time growing. And then there's last but not least, move from CEO to chairperson. Did you become an entrepreneur so you could actually be a slave to your business? No, you became an entrepreneur so you create wealth and freedom through having this business asset. Well, go build this business asset. And just like Rich Dad Poor Dad said, don't just build one business asset, create a passive income from this business asset because it can run without you, and go diversify your time in other areas. And even if you don't want to start other businesses, if you have a business that's generating for you, you can actually go spend more time with your family, invest in social causes, do other things that are important to you that fit in your True North life plan, which is a great place to end. What is your True North life plan? What are you trying to accomplish in life as an entrepreneur? And unless that's to work 80 hours a week, totally stressed out, freaking out, you may lose your business someday down the cliff, you're not going to be able to build the business of your dreams that fits your True North life plan. Know where you're centered. Know what you're most passionate about, what you can be the best in the world at, what drives your economic engine, and know what your one thing is. What are you trying to accomplish ultimately in all segments of your life? What are you trying to accomplish in the next 10 years, next 3 years, next year, next quarter, next week, today, this hour, and go do that. And align your True North life plan with your strategic business plan that really focuses in on accomplishing these 7 principles of entrepreneurial success. It's time to take control of your business and your life and build the business of your dreams without falling off the cliff. It's time to kick some ass.